There is a prison that almost nobody sees because it has no walls, no locks, no guards standing outside the gates. And yet, millions of people spend their entire lives inside it without ever realizing they are imprisoned, believing instead that they are simply living normal lives, making sensible decisions, protecting what is important, defending who they are, when in truth they are defending something that has never truly existed except as an idea held together by memory, fear, comparison, and the endless desire to be accepted by other people. Listen carefully, because this invisible prison does not exist somewhere outside you. It exists wherever your peace depends upon another person's opinion. It exists wherever your happiness rises and falls according to praise or criticism. It exists wherever you spend more energy protecting the image of yourself than discovering the reality of yourself. And perhaps the strangest thing of all is that the image you struggle so desperately to preserve is not even yours. It is a collection of reflections borrowed from the eyes of others, assembled over years of approval and rejection until you begin calling it me. From the very beginning of life, before you knew your own nature, the world began telling you who you should become. You were rewarded for certain behaviors and discouraged from others. You learned that smiling at the right moment earned affection, that speaking in certain ways brought approval, that hiding particular emotions made people more comfortable, and slowly, almost invisibly, a division appeared within you. There was the living, spontaneous presence that experienced life directly, and there was the carefully constructed personality designed to survive in society. At first, this construction seemed harmless. It helped you belong. It helped you avoid unnecessary conflict. But over time, something remarkable happened. The mask became so familiar that you forgot you were wearing it. The performance became so continuous that you mistook it for your identity. Then every criticism felt like an attack. Every rejection felt like a wound. Every misunderstanding felt like a threat to your existence. Not because your true nature had been damaged, but because the fragile image demanded constant protection. Observe your own life for a moment, without judgment. How many decisions have been made because they were deeply true to your heart, and how many were made because you feared disappointing someone? How often have you remained silent when honesty wished to speak? How often have you smiled while sadness lived behind the smile? How often have you agreed simply to avoid rejection? These moments seem insignificant when viewed individually, yet together they create an entire way of living, in which the energy that could have been used to awaken is instead consumed maintaining appearances. The tragedy is not that people misunderstand you. The tragedy is that in trying to prevent misunderstanding, you slowly stop understanding yourself. The mind believes that reputation is safety. It whispers that if enough people admire you, respect you, approve of you, then you will finally feel secure. Yet, have you noticed that the more approval you collect, the more frightened you become of losing it? Every compliment creates another expectation. Every achievement creates another standard to maintain. Every successful performance demands another performance tomorrow. What began as the search for acceptance quietly becomes slavery. You no longer live your life. You manage impressions. You no longer express your being. You negotiate your image. And because the image depends upon countless conditions outside your control, peace becomes impossible. Someone's opinion changes and your confidence trembles. A stranger criticizes you and your entire day is disturbed. A single careless comment echoes through the mind for hours because the image cannot defend itself without your constant attention. Reality, however, has no interest in your image. The sunrise does not care what people call it. The ocean does not become smaller because someone insults it. A mountain does not seek applause before standing in silence. Existence expresses itself without asking permission. It flowers because flowering is its nature. Human beings alone have learned to postpone their own flowering until they receive enough approval. And that approval never feels sufficient because fear always invents another condition that must be satisfied before freedom seems possible. Imagine for a moment that every opinion anyone has ever held about you vanished completely. Every compliment disappeared. Every criticism disappeared. Every label, every expectation, every reputation dissolved overnight. Who would remain? At first, the question may create anxiety because so much of ordinary identity depends upon comparison and recognition. Yet, stay with the question. Beneath the discomfort, there is extraordinary freedom. For what remains after all descriptions fall away cannot be damaged by opinion. It cannot be enlarged by praise or diminished by rejection. It simply is. Perhaps this is why so many people feel exhausted without understanding why. They believe they are tired because they work too much, because life is demanding, because responsibilities are heavy. Certainly these things consume energy, but there is another exhaustion that runs far deeper. It is the exhaustion of continuously editing yourself. It is the fatigue of remembering who you are supposed to be with each different person. It is the burden of carrying a personality that must constantly be defended, repaired, improved, explained, and protected. No wonder the heart longs for silence. No wonder solitude sometimes feels like relief. For in those rare moments when no audience remains, the performance can finally stop, and something older than personality begins to breathe again. The greatest liberation does not come from convincing the world to see you differently. It comes from discovering that your deepest reality never depended upon the world's perception in the first place. Then opinions become what they have always been, passing weather in another person's mind. They may contain insight worth considering. They may contain misunderstanding worth releasing, but they no longer define the sky of your being. The chains begin falling away, not because everyone suddenly approves of you, but because approval has lost its authority over your inner life. In that freedom, authenticity quietly returns, and for the first time, you begin living not as an image to be protected, but as a living presence that needs no defense. Beloved ones, there is another subtle way in which the image steals your life. And because it operates so quietly, very few people ever recognize it. It begins the moment you become more interested in appearing truthful than in discovering truth, more interested in appearing compassionate than in becoming compassionate, more interested in appearing successful than understanding what success truly means. The image always lives in the eyes of others. It asks continuously, how do I look? What do they think? Am I admired? Am I respected? Am I enough? Notice that none of these questions have anything to do with reality itself. They concern reflections, appearances, interpretations, and stories. The image survives entirely through mirrors. Remove the mirrors, and it begins trembling because it has forgotten how to exist on its own. This is why so many people become uncomfortable when they are alone. Solitude removes the audience. Without someone watching, the performance suddenly loses its purpose, and the silence begins revealing a stranger hiding beneath years of carefully managed identity. Observe how exhausting this becomes over the course of a lifetime. Every conversation becomes something to calculate. Every decision becomes an opportunity to protect reputation. Every mistake becomes dangerous because mistakes threaten the image of perfection that the mind desperately wants others to believe. Even love becomes complicated because instead of meeting another person openly, two carefully constructed identities begin negotiating with one another. One mask falls in love with another mask, each hoping the other will never discover what lies beneath. Yet no relationship built upon performance can provide deep peace, because the heart longs to be seen as it truly is, not as it pretends to be. The strange thing is that most people secretly desire authenticity while simultaneously fearing it. They long to be accepted completely, yet they rarely reveal themselves completely. They wait for unconditional love while offering carefully edited versions of themselves. In this contradiction, much unnecessary suffering is born. Have you noticed, beloved ones, how children laugh without wondering without their laughter sounds intelligent? They dance without asking if someone approves of their movements. They cry without worrying about appearing weak. There is an innocence in this spontaneity because identity has not yet become imprisoned by constant self-observation. Then slowly, society begins teaching the child to monitor every gesture. Sit this way, speak this way, dress this way, behave this way. Do not cry too much. Do not laugh too loudly. Do not stand out. Do not disappoint. None of these instructions are entirely wrong, for every society requires some order. Yet something precious is often sacrificed in the process. Spontaneity becomes replaced by calculation. Natural expression becomes filtered through fear. The child begins learning not only how to behave, but how to become an image acceptable to others. Decades later, that same child, now an adult, wonders why life feels heavy, without realizing that carrying an artificial identity is like carrying invisible armor every hour of every day. Armor protects, but it also prevents you from truly feeling the breeze, the warmth of the sun, and the touch of another human heart. The ego loves this armor because it mistakes protection for life. It whispers that vulnerability is dangerous, that authenticity invites rejection, that if people truly knew you, they would turn away. Yet look carefully at your deepest relationships. Were they created because someone admired your perfection, or because at some moment both of you stopped pretending? Every genuine connection is born when defenses soften. Every profound friendship begins where performance ends. Every meaningful conversation emerges when image becomes less important than honesty. This is why authenticity feels so refreshing. It allows others permission to stop pretending as well. One honest person in a room full of performers changes the atmosphere completely, because truth carries a quiet strength that no performance can imitate. The mind believes that controlling your image gives you control over life itself. Yet this control is always fragile, because it depends upon circumstances that cannot be governed. You cannot command another person's interpretation. You cannot dictate another person's memory. You cannot prevent criticism. You cannot ensure admiration. Today, someone praises you. Tomorrow, the same person may misunderstand you. If your peace depends upon remaining consistently admired, then your peace belongs to everyone except yourself. You become a prisoner whose jailers change faces every day. One stranger on the street possesses the power to disturb your sleep. One comment on a screen influences your mood. One careless opinion enters your mind and echoes for hours. This is not freedom. It is dependence disguised as social success. There comes a beautiful turning point in consciousness when you begin asking a different question. Instead of asking, "How do people see me?" you begin asking, "Am I seeing myself clearly?" This small shift changes everything, because your attention moves from appearance toward awareness. Rather than managing perception, you begin observing reality. You become interested not in preserving an image, but in understanding your own mind. You notice the subtle fears behind your desire for approval. You notice the loneliness hiding beneath your ambition. You notice how often comparison quietly poisons gratitude. This observation is not condemnation, it is compassion. For only what is seen clearly can begin transforming naturally. And beloved ones, something extraordinary happens the less you protect your image. You discover an energy that was always available but endlessly consumed by psychological maintenance. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase for years without realizing you were free to put it down. The moment it leaves your hands, your body feels lighter, not because you became stronger, but because the unnecessary burden disappeared. The image is such a burden. Every lie requires remembering another lie. Every false identity demands constant repair. Every attempt to impress someone drains vitality that could have been used simply to live. Authenticity is not difficult because authenticity requires no memory. It asks only that you remain present enough to respond honestly to this moment. Life itself seems to favor what is real. A flower does not compete with another flower for beauty. It simply blooms according to its own nature. The ocean does not imitate the mountains, and the mountains do not envy the stars. Everything in existence expresses itself without apology, except human beings, who spend enormous portions of their lives wishing to become someone else. Yet comparison is the birthplace of image. The moment you compare yourself, you begin constructing a personality designed to compensate for imagined deficiencies. You become less interested in discovering your own path and more interested in matching someone else's journey. This inevitably creates frustration because no imitation, however successful, can replace the quiet satisfaction of becoming fully yourself. Perhaps this is why the wisest people often appear remarkably ordinary. They are no longer occupied creating an impressive identity. They have nothing to defend, nothing to exaggerate, nothing to hide. Their presence carries a simplicity that is strangely powerful, because simplicity cannot be manipulated. They listen without preparing an image. They speak without excessive calculation. They admit mistakes without feeling diminished. They change their minds without believing their identity has collapsed. This flexibility is not weakness, it is freedom. Only rigid identities fear movement. Reality itself is always flowing. And when you begin living this way, beloved ones, criticism changes its meaning. If someone offers truth, you learn from it. If someone projects misunderstanding, you allow it to pass. Not every opinion deserves a home inside your consciousness. Not every judgment deserves your attention. The sky does not argue with passing clouds. It simply allows them to move across its vastness. Awareness possesses the same spaciousness. Thoughts, praise, blame, approval, rejection, admiration, misunderstanding, they all appear and disappear. But the one who observes them remains untouched. Discover that observer deeply enough, and opinions lose their chains. Not because the world has stopped judging, but because you have stopped confusing judgment with your identity. Beloved ones, perhaps the greatest deception created by the image is that it convinces you that love must be earned rather than discovered. From childhood, you begin believing that if only you become intelligent enough, attractive enough, successful enough, spiritual enough, generous enough, disciplined enough, then finally you will deserve acceptance. Notice the endless movement hidden within this belief. It always places fulfillment somewhere in the future. It whispers that the person you are now is insufficient and that peace belongs only to a better version of yourself waiting somewhere ahead. The image survives through this postponement because it can never allow you to arrive. The moment you become satisfied with simply being, the image begins losing its authority. Its entire existence depends upon convincing you that something essential is still missing. Therefore, it invents endless improvements, endless comparisons, endless standards that can never be completely fulfilled. The horizon always moves farther away each time you believe you have reached it. This is why so many successful people secretly remain exhausted. They have achieved what they once believed would finally make them complete. Yet, instead of finding rest, they discover another mountain waiting to be climbed, another reputation waiting to be protected, another audience waiting to be impressed, another expectation waiting to be satisfied. Outwardly they appear victorious, but inwardly they remain trapped inside the same mechanism that governed them before success arrived. The image simply changes clothing. Yesterday it wanted recognition. Today it wants to preserve recognition. Yesterday it feared being ignored. Today it fears becoming forgotten. Nothing fundamental has changed because the prison remains the same, even though its decorations have become more luxurious. Observe the strange relationship the image has with memory. It continuously collects stories in order to reinforce itself. It reminds you of every compliment you received because it wishes to convince you that you are important. It reminds you of every insult because it wishes to convince you that you are wounded. It repeats moments of glory and moments of humiliation with equal enthusiasm because both strengthen the sense of a personal identity moving through time. Yet awareness has no interest in collecting these stories. Awareness experiences each moment completely and then allows it to pass. It is the mind that clings. It is the image that archives. It is the ego that constantly edits the autobiography it hopes the world will admire. Have you ever watched someone become offended by words that were never intended to cause harm? Another person says something carelessly, perhaps without malice, perhaps without even realizing it, and immediately the image begins interpreting, defending, explaining, resisting. The heart begins beating faster, the body becomes tense, thoughts multiply. Entire conversations are replayed again and again. Yet what actually happened? A few sounds entered the ears, and then the image transformed them into a personal attack. This does not mean people never behave unkindly. Certainly they do. But much of human suffering is intensified not by the event itself, but by the identity that insists upon carrying it long after the moment has passed. The image cannot forgive easily because forgiveness feels like surrender, and surrender appears dangerous to something whose entire existence depends upon remaining separate, defended, and significant. The remarkable thing is that reality never asks you to defend what is real. Truth does not require protection because truth remains true regardless of opinion. If someone insists that the sun has disappeared while it shines brightly overhead, the sunlight loses nothing. Reality remains untouched by misunderstanding. In the same way, your deepest nature is not diminished because someone fails to recognize it. Only the image feels injured because only the image depends upon recognition. Once this becomes clear, a profound relaxation begins entering your life. You stop carrying every conversation home with you. You stop rehearsing imaginary arguments in your mind. You stop spending precious hours trying to convince people who have already decided not to understand. Instead, your energy begins returning to the present moment, where life has always been waiting patiently beneath the endless noise of psychological conflict. Beloved ones, there is also tremendous freedom in allowing yourself to be misunderstood. This may sound almost impossible because the mind wants clarity, agreement, and validation. Yet understand something beautiful. Every person sees you through the lens of their own experiences, their own fears, their own desires, their own conditioning. No matter how carefully you explain yourself, another person's perception will always be influenced by the world they carry inside. To demand perfect understanding from everyone is to demand the impossible. The wise person communicates honestly, listens sincerely, and then releases the outcome. He understands that clarity is valuable, but control over another person's interpretation is an illusion. The moment you stop trying to control perception, an enormous burden quietly disappears. There comes a day, if you continue observing with patience, when you notice that the one constantly protecting the image is itself only another movement of thought. It feels so personal only because you have identified with it for so long. Sit silently for a while and watch carefully. A thought appears saying, "They should appreciate me more." Another thought follows saying, "I hope they do not judge me." Another says, "What if they think I failed?" Watch them come and go like birds crossing the sky. Did you create each thought deliberately? Did you invite every fear, or did they simply appear? If they appear and disappear while something within you observes them, then perhaps you are not the voice itself. Perhaps you are the silent awareness listening to it. This realization changes everything, because the image belongs to thoughts, but awareness belongs to no image at all. When this understanding begins flowering, beloved ones, you become available to a different way of living. You no longer ask every morning how to become more impressive. You begin asking how to become more present. You no longer wonder whether everyone approves of you. You wonder whether you are awake enough to experience this day fully. You no longer measure your value by applause or criticism. Instead, you discover that your deepest dignity arises naturally whenever you are completely honest with existence. There is no performance in such honesty. There is no audience required. There is only the quiet joy of no longer carrying the impossible responsibility of becoming someone else. And perhaps that is the beginning of real freedom. Not when the world finally accepts you, but when you stop abandoning yourself in order to earn that acceptance. Beloved ones, once you begin seeing the image for what it is, another discovery quietly follows. And this discovery is perhaps even more unsettling than the first, because you begin realizing that almost every conflict in your life has never really been between you and another person at all, but between your image and their image. Between two invisible constructions, trying desperately to survive. Two collections of memories, beliefs, expectations, wounds, ambitions, and fears, colliding with one another, while the living beings behind those constructions remain almost completely hidden. Look carefully at an ordinary argument. One person says something, the other reacts immediately. Defensiveness appears. Explanations multiply. Voices become louder. Both individuals become convinced they are protecting something valuable. Yet, what exactly are they protecting? Not truth, because truth has no need to shout. Not love, because love listens before it speaks. Not awareness, because awareness is never in conflict with itself. They are protecting ideas about themselves, images carefully built through years of psychological effort. Once this becomes visible, compassion begins arising naturally, because you realize that nearly everyone is carrying the same invisible burden. Each person is terrified that the mask might crack. Each person is hoping the world will confirm the identity they have spent decades constructing. Suddenly you no longer see enemies everywhere. You see frightened human beings protecting fragile illusions.
This understanding changes the way you relate to criticism as well.
Ordinarily, criticism feels like an attack because it appears to threaten the image. The ego immediately begins searching for evidence proving the other person wrong. It becomes a liar defending a client who does not even exist. But awareness asks a different question. Awareness does not ask whether criticism is pleasant. Awareness asks whether it is true. If it contains truth, then it becomes an opportunity to learn. If it contains no truth, then it loses its power because reality cannot be damaged by misunderstanding. Imagine someone calling the ocean a desert. Would the ocean become offended? Would it begin arguing? Would it desperately try to prove its identity? The ocean simply remains itself. The problem exists only for the one who is confused. In the same way, the more deeply you know yourself, the less energy you waste defending yourself. Your certainty no longer depends upon agreement. It arises from direct experience rather than public opinion.
Beloved ones,
have you noticed how adjusting it is to remember who you are supposed to be? Around one group of people, you become serious because that image has earned respect. Around another group, you become entertaining because that image has earned approval. Around family, you become one personality. Around colleagues, another. Around strangers, another still. Slowly, life becomes a theater with countless costumes hanging backstage. And before entering each new situation, the mind quickly asks, which version of me should appear now? This constant adjustment drains enormous amounts of energy because anything artificial requires maintenance. The actor must remember the script. The liar must remember the lie. The image must constantly monitor itself. But authenticity possesses an extraordinary simplicity. When you stop trying to become someone, there is nothing left to remember. You respond naturally because there is no performance separating you from the moment. This simplicity feels almost frightening at first because the ego mistakes spontaneity for danger. It believes control guarantees safety. Yet real life has always been spontaneous. Watch the trees moving in the wind. They do not rehearse. Watch the birds crossing the morning sky. They do not consult an audience before singing. Existence expresses itself directly because existence carries no image that needs protection. Perhaps this is why so many people secretly long to disappear for a while. They believe they want a vacation, a different city, a different career, a different relationship. But often, what they truly desire is a temporary escape from the exhausting responsibility of maintaining an identity. Notice how peaceful you sometimes feel while walking alone in nature, where there is nobody to impress, nobody to convince, nobody expecting you to perform. The mountains ask nothing of you. The river does not compare you with anyone else. The evening sky has no opinion about your success or failure. Suddenly, a forgotten relaxation begins returning, because for a brief moment, the image loses its audience, and without an audience, it begins dissolving naturally. This is one reason human beings have always been drawn toward forests, deserts, oceans, and empty places. It is not only the beauty of nature that heals them, it is the absence of psychological pressure. For a little while, they are allowed simply to exist.
Beloved ones, there comes a beautiful stage on the journey where you stop asking how to improve your image and begin asking how to dissolve unnecessary separation altogether. This question transforms everything, because now your attention moves away from appearances and toward consciousness itself. Instead of polishing the mirror endlessly, you begin looking through it. Instead of decorating the prison walls, you begin searching for the open door. Meditation becomes meaningful here, not because meditation creates a better identity, but because meditation gently exposes the illusion that identity is all you are. Sit quietly for a few moments each day, without trying to become anything. Watch thoughts arise and disappear. Notice the voice describing who you are, what others think, what you should accomplish, what you regret, what you hope. Let every thought come and go without interference. Slowly another presence begins revealing itself. Silent, spacious, untouched. It has watched every success without becoming successful. It has watched every failure without becoming a failure. It has watched childhood, youth, maturity, joy, sorrow, praise, criticism, gain, and loss. Everything has changed except this witnessing awareness. Once you begin recognizing this witness, the image starts losing its hypnotic authority, because you discover something infinitely more real than the story you have been defending. And perhaps, beloved ones, this is the deepest reason why the opinions of others become chains only when you have forgotten yourself. The opinion itself possesses very little power. It is only a sound, a sentence,
a movement of air. The chains are forged when that opinion meets an identity desperate for confirmation. Remove the desperation and the chains fall apart by themselves. People remain free to praise you. They remain free to misunderstand you. They remain free to admire you today and criticize you tomorrow. Their freedom no longer threatens yours because your center has shifted from reputation to awareness. Then life becomes astonishingly light. You speak honestly because honesty feels natural. You admit mistakes because mistakes no longer define you. You laugh more easily because there is no image demanding constant seriousness. You become humble without humiliation and confident without arrogance, because both humility and confidence arise from the same source, the absence of psychological pretense. And in that absence, beloved ones, perhaps for the first time, you discover the extraordinary freedom of simply being without the endless burden of becoming someone else. Beloved ones, if there is one thing worth remembering after all these reflections, let it be this: the greatest prison humanity has ever created is not made of iron bars, stone walls, or locked doors. It is made of opinions believed too deeply, identities defended too fiercely, and images protected for so long that people forget they were the ones who created them. The tragedy is not that the prison exists. The tragedy is that the prisoner eventually begins decorating the cell instead of looking for the key. People spend years improving their reputation, polishing their personality, refining their public identity, collecting admiration, and protecting appearances, while the silent awareness within them waits patiently, asking only to be recognized. The prison is comfortable enough to become familiar, and familiarity has an extraordinary ability to disguise itself as safety. Yet safety purchased at the cost of authenticity is never true security. It is merely a quieter form of fear. Life has never asked you to become an ideal. Life has never demanded that you satisfy every expectation placed upon you by society, by family, or even by yourself. Those expectations belong to the world of comparison, and comparison can never reveal your true nature, because it is always measuring one illusion against another. Existence creates no duplicates. Every tree grows according to its own rhythm. Every river finds its own path toward the sea. Every star occupies its own place in the night sky without competing for brightness. Only human beings have learned to believe that they must become someone else before they are worthy of peace. This belief is the beginning of endless struggle, because it places fulfillment forever in the future. There is always another image to improve, another opinion to influence, another standard to reach. Meanwhile, the simple miracle of being alive quietly slips through your fingers unnoticed. Perhaps this is why so many people arrive at the end of life carrying an unexpected sadness. They realize they spent decades protecting a version of themselves that never truly existed. They worried endlessly about what others might think, only to discover that everyone else was equally occupied protecting their own images. They sacrificed spontaneity for approval, honesty for acceptance, curiosity for certainty, and presence for performance. Looking backward, they see that many of their greatest fears never happened, and many of the opinions they fought so hard to manage were forgotten almost as quickly as they appeared. The audience they lived for was never watching as closely as they imagined. Every person was busy rehearsing his own performance. Beloved ones, there is immense beauty in becoming ordinary again. The ego hears the word ordinary as an insult because it dreams only of becoming exceptional. Awareness hears it differently. To become ordinary is to stop carrying unnecessary weight. It is to smile without calculating how the smile appears. It is to speak honestly without endlessly editing every sentence. It is to admit uncertainty without believing uncertainty makes you weak. It is to walk through the world without constantly asking whether you are succeeding at being someone. This ordinariness is not mediocrity, it is freedom. It is the freedom of no longer exhausting yourself trying to become extraordinary in the eyes of others. The flower blooming in a quiet field does not feel incomplete because nobody applauds it. Its fulfillment lies in blooming itself. Human beings have forgotten this simple wisdom. Do not misunderstand this invitation. It is not an invitation to become careless or indifferent. It is not an excuse to ignore the impact your actions have upon others. Authenticity does not mean acting upon every impulse. Awareness naturally carries responsibility because awareness sees clearly that everything is connected. The difference is that your actions begin flowing from understanding rather than from the desperate need to protect an identity. Kindness becomes genuine because it is no longer a strategy for appearing good. Humility becomes effortless because there is no image demanding superiority. Courage becomes natural because there is less to defend. Even silence changes its quality. It is no longer the silence of repression, but the silence of a mind that no longer needs to explain itself continuously. Imagine waking one morning with no urgent need to prove your intelligence, your success, your spirituality, your importance, or your value. Imagine entering conversations not to impress but to understand. Imagine listening without secretly preparing your reply. Imagine making a mistake and learning from it instead of defending it. Imagine allowing another person to misunderstand you without feeling that your existence has been diminished. Such a life is not passive, it is deeply alive, because enormous amounts of energy return to the present moment. The strength once consumed by maintaining appearances becomes available for awareness, creativity, love, and genuine connection. Then relationships change in surprising ways. You stop asking whether people admire you and begin asking whether you truly see them. You stop searching for those who reinforce your image and begin appreciating those who encourage your honesty. Love becomes less about possession and more about presence. Friendship becomes less about agreement and more about understanding. Even conflict changes because there is less pride demanding victory. Sometimes you apologize more quickly. Sometimes you speak more directly. Sometimes you simply let silence resolve what arguments never could. The need to be right gradually gives way to the deeper joy of being awake. And slowly, almost without noticing, you begin discovering a dignity that cannot be given by applause and cannot be taken away by criticism. It does not depend upon status because it existed before status. It does not depend upon success because it remains during failure. It does not depend upon youth because it matures with age. It does not depend upon the opinions of the crowd because it arises from the quiet recognition of your own awareness. This dignity has always been there, hidden beneath years of psychological noise, waiting patiently beneath every ambition, every fear, every comparison, every carefully constructed identity. One day, perhaps while walking alone beneath an evening sky, perhaps while sitting quietly with no destination to reach, perhaps while watching rain fall against a window, or listening to the wind moving gently through the trees, you may suddenly realize that the person you spent your whole life trying to become was never as important as the awareness that has been silently witnessing your entire journey. Every success passed before it. Every disappointment passed before it. Every identity appeared within it and disappeared again. Yet the awareness remained untouched. And in that recognition, beloved ones, something extraordinary happens. The struggle begins to soften. The endless performance begins to dissolve. The burden of maintaining an image becomes too heavy to continue carrying. You stop chasing acceptance because you have stopped rejecting yourself. You stop protecting appearances because reality no longer frightens you. You stop living from the surface and begin living from the center. Then the opinions of the world lose their chains. Not because the world has fallen silent, but because you have discovered a silence far deeper than the world's noise. Then authenticity is no longer something you practice, it becomes your nature. Then freedom is no longer an idea, it becomes the way you breathe. And perhaps that is the greatest wisdom of all. Not becoming someone greater than you are, but finally having the courage to stop pretending to be someone you never were.